Well, ladies and gentlemen, we have given the vice chair more minutes, but we don't want to delay y'all or Representative Tran, so we'll go ahead and get started. I'm sure Vice Chair Mitchell will be along. We are here today for hearing only on House Bill 797, and we'd like to recognize Representative Tran to present the bill.
Mr. Chairman and members of the committee for hearing this bill today. So I'm going to try to be as efficient as possible in talking about this bill. Some of the things that are, some of the changes we're proposing, you can see on lines 56 through 59, we're proposing to.
There you go, right there. Sorry.
That's okay. We're proposing to have the cannabis registry cards mailed out to, can you all hear me? All right, I'm going to speak without the microphone. Have the patients receive their cannabis registry cards through the mail. We have a lot of patients, and I'll use a personal example. My father had Alzheimer's last summer, and so he couldn't get out of our house, and then we put him in a nursing home. And we didn't go through the process, but there were other medicines, other needs that we were able to get to him. And so I can only imagine patients who need this registry card having to go to a facility to get the card would be a huge barrier. So for us to be able to mail the cards to them would be a big help to patients who require a cannabis registry card. The other thing I want to point out to you is on lines 67 through 71, and this language may change a little bit, is a requirement for patients to visit their physician every 6 months. We've heard from a lot of people that this may be an economic barrier for them, and so we're considering whether or not an annual visit would get us the data that we would need. As a state, we just don't have the data on the efficacy of cannabis. And so requiring at least a minimum of an annual visit will build the data that we need to track the growing usage of medical cannabis in our state. Now, from lines 71 through 73, we also want to make sure that the dispensaries and the physicians are researching, sorry, I'm missing the word, but when you do drug interactions, right? When you go to a pharmacy, they go through a database to make sure there's no adverse drug interactions. So we want to make sure that we have that in place to make sure that there's no adverse interactions with any existing medication that these patients are currently on. And finally, section lines 83 through 87 is prior to certifying any patients pursuant to this code section, a physician shall be required to complete a physician education course established or approved by the board relating or treating conditions with low THC oil, including side effects, adverse reactions, dosages, and possible drug interactions. Such course shall be made available for completion online. We want to make sure that our physicians, regardless of which medical field that they're focused in on, is trained to the best possible so that they can properly recommend the usage of cannabis medicine. So I know we're short on time. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Representative. You did a good job of presenting the bill. We appreciate that. Appreciate your brevity in doing that. We do have a question, two questions.
Thank you, Representative Tran. A quick question here about line 67. A physician shall be required to reevaluate a registered patient at least once every 6 months. And you said the purpose of that is so that you can track
the progress of the patient on the medication, the efficacy of the medication, of the cannabis medication.
Okay. Is there?
Right now, we don't have a lot of data on.
I understand. Works. So what is, and forgive me for not knowing, what is in place right now in terms of what are the requirements? Are there any requirements that these patients be reevaluated or given exams?
do the evaluation, they come back and reevaluate after 3 months, 6 months, and a year. So to your point, sir, it is very important that we are establishing that doctor-patient relationship, as well as making sure if their medicines change, that we're doing side effects changes. That's huge because this bill is all about supporting people with medicine, and it's extremely important.
Right, and if I may, Mr. Chairman, follow
sure.
up. So the 3 months, 6 month, and you said 1 year?
Yes,
But that's not in,
it's not
Co-
required.
that is your, and again, I'm sorry, do you mind introducing yourself?
Yes, Cheryl Faulkner, CEO of Elevated Health MD.
Okay, all right, so that is elevated health requirement currently, and you're looking to put this in that requirement in code?
Yes.
We're strong advocates of that because it is important to change the stigma. So to your point, it's not just to get the data and not just get people high, so to speak, but to actually track the benefits of the medical cannabis.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Leader McDonald.
Thank you, Ms. Shelly. I got two questions. Line 57. What's the importance of the date, April 1st, 2024?
So I dropped this bill last year. We will have to update it so that it will be either the 2025 or maybe 2026. But it was just an implementation. I'm sorry?
I mean, that's what you're talking about implementing it. Should it be like, one signature of the governor, or is that,
Yeah, we just want to make sure there's enough time for the state
Okay.
to implement
and
it.
one
Whether
more-
it's upon signature of the governor or 6 months to a year afterwards.
Okay. Line
Flexibility.
127.
Yep.
No reporter may discharge, threaten, refuse to hire, or otherwise discriminate, retaliate his employee regarding employees' compensation terms and conditions. Can you explain that a little bit more?
You said line 77?
127, excuse me.
27.
Line 127. So we want to bring this in line with, say, opioids, where a doctor prescribes a painkiller and you can still go to work. You're not going to be fired for having a prescription for painkillers. We also want to make sure that someone taking low dose THC is allowed to continue to work. They're not going to be fired for taking cannabis while at work. Now, we will follow federal guidelines. So let's say an airline pilot would not be allowed to be taking opioids while they're flying. They would also not be allowed to take low dose THC.
And I just, my question dealing with that is, you got fire, EMS,
Yes.
others. I mean, if your insurance is not going to cover an employee because of this, I feel like it should be explained a little bit more in that area. Even talking about the guidelines.
And I'm happy to look into further clarifying
Okay,
these
we'll talk
lines,
offline.
but we just want to make sure that this is broad in lines with how we treat prescriptions like painkillers.
Thank you. The chair.
I wasn't in the legislature when the bill first passed, so unfortunately, but I can find out.
And the second question is related to line 67 through, 67 and a few lines down. I would assume, and I know that you said this may change, I would assume that if a person is under the guidance of a physician, based on whatever the diagnosis is, that the physician should be taking account on the progress of the cannabis. So you may not have to have it every 6 months because based on the diagnosis, they may come in once a month.
And based
So
on the feedback I've been given, we're flexible in making that change. We just want to make sure that patients are having that relationship with their physician. One, so that we have the data to track the progress and the efficacy of the cannabis medication, and one, the relationship between a physician and a patient. The better and stronger that relation is, the better it is for the patient.
Thank you. One follow-up.
Sure.
I do think that is something I don't think that we really have thought about. If you look at the opioid epidemic and how that kind of went uncharted, we definitely don't want this to be in the same category. So thank you for bringing attention to the matter.
You're welcome.
Chair recognizes Secretary Earhart.
Thank you. Just one follow-up question, kind of expounding on what Representative Mainor indicated. I just want to kind of clarify. So physicians will be required to reevaluate a patient. So how is that tracked? In other words, you're saying that the physician needs to provide, or in other words, the physician needs to provide verification or proof. What exactly is being provided? Again, I'm just thinking about privacy, medical issues, your organization, or I'm just using you as an example because you're here, you understand? So this data that you're looking to collect, this is essentially private medical data that would be provided to.
And we're going to follow all the HIPAA guidelines, and the medical board would be the ones who would, I guess, collate this data and use this data. Perhaps you can provide.
Currently, if I may, currently the way that they are doing it is physicians have to input, when they input a patient, they have to input certain, whether it's condition, where they live, and all this information. If they would be able to upload it in that, where every, they could really track, and so that we can have that data, but of course, following HIPAA rules, making sure that patients, sign a waiver saying, hey, we're okay releasing this data so that we can build the research on this medicine. They, of course, would have to opt into that, but as of right now, patients do have to be entered into the registry with their condition, with a note at the bottom saying what medications they're on and things like that. So we really just want to update that so that it can be like, for example, in Florida, the doctor has to input a bit more information. It would be like that, but like I said, of course, we follow HIPAA, and they would be.
It's an opt-in.
And when you're, I'm sorry, and when you're entering it into the state site, there is a part for the waiver part of it as well. So
Okay.
just to have that being updated, I agree. So,
Thank you for that. Thank you for the clarification. Appreciate that.
Lady McDonald, did you have another question? Here,
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I have a question.
Yes, sir.
I was noticing the line 83 through 87. Prior to certifying any patients pursuant to this code section, a physician shall be required to complete a physical education course established or approved by the board.